Hello, everybody. Panelist Greg here to tell you that we had some slight technical difficulties, so you might hear an occasional pop or audio loss on Mike's track this episode. We will get that straightened out, but remember, it's always producer Dave's fault.
Welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast that has the science and the screaming to figure out what the best movie is of any given year. This year is 1996. But this show is also a game in which points are awarded for well-made arguments, cogent thoughts about the film, jokes, and anything else I fucking feel like awarding. The winner will be my best friend for a week and have gloating rights. I'm your host, by the way, Mike Gravano. And this is my season, bitches, so strap in. I'm very excited to talk about Mars Attacks with you, the listener, and with our panelists. Panelist one, Ryan?
Mike, thanks for, did you get off early at your WWE announcing job to come to the podcast tonight? I appreciate it. Mike, some call me Ryan, but others call me Sir Mars a lot, because baby got ack, if you know what I mean.
Hey, you're playing to the back seats, and I love it.
The what seats?
The ack seats,
there
of course.
Go. There he is.
Woo, you know what? Normally correcting me? No, but that one,
one works.
The person who thinks it works is Greg.
Speaking of someone with a little junk in the trunk, these aliens got it, baby. A time where the booty was not really going off just yet, but man, they're cheeked up.
Well, you can tell because the designers are like, how can we make them gross? You can see their brain and their unlidded eyes and then the weird cheek frills. And so at the time, they're like, ew, a good ass. Disgusting.
Yeah, a dump truck ass that everybody hates.
But this is why all the dudes in Congress were like, well, maybe we should hear him.
Wait, hang on. Give me a second here. Give me a second.
I've never related more to a White House dirtbag than Martin Short pulling over that limo. All right, and here to ground us and let us know what the people of the world think, it's Waiting for Doom's Paul.
Hey there, everyone.
Paul, thank you for joining us.
Absolute pleasure. I'm a huge fan of the show since you guys invited me on your show. So
that's how we do it. We're increasing our listenership one guest at a time.
The podcaster's way.
Rate the show, leave a review, and you can host it.
You can have a season. Pick a year. I mean, go for it.
Cool. I think we'll redo some of the other seasons that you've already done because you got them wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. The listeners let us know that we have botched many of the years we've attempted.
And look, we're going to say which, but sometimes in our private text feed, we also say that. I'll never tell Brittany Murphy. Let's go around the horn. Paul, what is your relationship to Mars Attacks?
Saw it with my wife in 1996. Was kind of hoping for a good time. It wasn't disappointed. So, but yeah, it's a film I haven't really thought about. But a few years ago, I saw it in a secondhand store and thought, oh yeah, $1. I'll watch that again. So I did.
Taylor's old as time.
Yeah,
Ryan.
I was excited to watch this movie. Like, I think I was a huge proponent in our opening of our season premiere of 1996 of like, let's see if we can get this in here and review it. What we want to do is when we see a groundswell, when we see stock rising, we want to jump on that and then say it was our responsibility.
Yeah, that we did it.
Yeah. We made that stock go up.
Gave it the bump.
And yeah, it's I would say this is Burton minus, which is much better than the Burton we get now.
Oh my God, yeah.
yeah.
I would call his new sub Burton Ernie.
Mike,
Ernie could not direct.
I'm going to roll right over that so that nobody has time to think about what Ryan just said. I guess I do kind of echo the fact that it is hit or miss, but I just think that the hits are pretty good hits.
Yeah.
That there are elements to this movie that I cannot believe they didn't take out. I can't believe they didn't tighten it up a little bit. But I laughed out loud multiple times, and that is not sort of like what was in the zeitgeist in 96. This was considered a swing and a miss, and that like it had not hit the target that it aimed for, and I don't think that's accurate. I think by and large it accomplishes its own goals.
I hope I don't burn anybody's recommendation, but it does remind me a lot of Starship Troopers, where the viewers
God
in the 90s
damn
were
it,
just
Mike.
fucking idiots and did not understand the point of the movie. Because if you watch this and be like, this is just as serious as Independence Day, You should have eaten those trading cards till you died, I guess.
Independence Day are most serious films.
The seriousness
Are the
of
most
movies.
serious films. No, it's very much in the it's weird. There's the Volcano, Dante's Peak, Armageddon. What was the other Armageddon? Deep Impact. There's just
Impact.
the 90s loved
Porn
twofers.
version.
I will say that, like, and there was Lake Placid 2, I believe.
Wyatt
both of
Earp
those
and
were-
Tombstone.
I think that these two in the same year is totally fine. I'm stoked. I don't know if we would do Dante's Peak and Volcano both in the same season,
Too much cinema.
but these are two wildly different movies.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think there was like a gas leak in the world in 1996 that the movie captures. That's why everybody in it is so stupid. But to watch this movie and be like, well, seems like there's a weird tonal issue here. No, obviously it's trying to be stupid and it's parodying something that we're all thinking about all the time, which is B cinema from the 60s.
And obviously, if you're watching this movie and you're like Tim Burton, more like Burton Ernie, then you're being smart, and that's something that should be applauded.
Oh, weird. Paul and Greg are racking up points, and I don't even get why.
Yeah. We're not even
We're like-
talking.
A veritable Burton Ernie over here.
Oh no! Well, points
Oops,
removal.
shit.
I've never seen that
Shit.
happen before.
Sorry, Paul. Sorry.
Yeah, only points removed from Paul. Something's going on with our producers tracking points. All right, guys, let's stop farting around. We're gonna take the quick breaks, and we come back. Just dive into Mars Attacks. Mars Attacks was a science fiction themed trading card series released in 1962 by Topps, which was a company that spun out of the American Leaf Tobacco Company, jumped into making bubblegum, and then trading cards. Neat. Kids loved these cards, probably due to the explicit gore and implied sexual content that really made parents upset. Then in 80s, Alex Cox, creator of Repo Man and Sid and Nancy, tried to turn those cards into a movie to no avail. People were like, that's stupid. Why would that ever be a movie? But then in the 90s, Tim Burton and his creative partner Jonathan Gems came onto the scene, and they decided to combine Burton's love for Ed Wood with 1970s disastrous movie like The Towering Inferno, meaning they were writing it and then watched The Towering Inferno and went, this is what we're doing. There's constant butting heads with the studio who try to force subtitles on The Martians and get rid of the Burning Cows intro, which led to Gems being fired. But like Chris Parnell, eventually rehired when his replacements made the script far less satirical than Tim Burton originally wanted. The film, unfortunately, ended up being compared to another 1996 alien invasion movie, which wrinkles Burton just a little bit. He had never heard of Independence Day until it came out. Taste buds, I ask you this. If Burton felt a burning need to make this movie, does the movie itself prove it needed to be made? And what do we get from Burton here that a non-Burton Mars Attacks would not have featured?
This is a film just rooted in hate for humanity.
Yes.
There isn't, there's nothing like it. I think it's made by Venusians because it hates Mars and it hates humans, and it just makes fun of them relentlessly. I mean, it's propaganda against people.
Propaganda I can get behind.
Yeah, I mean, like, maybe back then it was like, okay, he's being weird, but now at this point, do we have any arguments with how awful people are?
The least realistic thing is how many people in this movie are like, violence. Come on, that's not the answer.
Yeah.
Well, that I'll tell you one big Burton-y thing. Them red and green skeletons. Man, what a whimsical little affectation that when people have all their flesh burned away, whatever ray was used to burn all their flesh away, their skeletons are left green or red. And Burton was quoted as saying, well, I believed the movie would come out around Christmas, and so I wanted a Christmassy affectation, which I like.
And I love how you can see the Martians be like, I'm going to use my other gun.
Yes.
It feels more like a red skeleton than a green skeleton.
We have a bunch of red skeletons.
I want to balance it.
And then, of course, the Elfman score, which, like, it's like he went to his big box of Elfman tricks and then just shook it as hard as he could and just poured them all out into the score of this movie, which is marvelous. It totally works. But if you tried to tell somebody that was not the person who did the music, they would know that you were lying. There's no way you could hide it.
And it's not gray toned. I do think he used to paint with more colors, both metaphorically and literally, back in the day.
I think he liked that sort of like the contrast of the black and white versus the really colorful, but he's embracing wholeheartedly. Like, I mean, this movie is set in 1996. There's only a couple indications that that's the case, though, because the fashion is very much, feels like to me, late 1960s fashion. Like nobody, even the set for the talk show, it's got those weird like round chairs that I think of as being like part of the 60s or 70s. And so he definitely went for that sort of like feeling, and that led to a lot of the advanced color palette of the movie.
And the artificiality of the look of everything is a feature in the film, not a bug.
Right.
The aliens don't quite look real. Technology doesn't quite look real. Everything doesn't look real, but it's deliberate, and it's the style of it. It's fake, but it's gloriously fake.
Yeah, it's
I think
celebrating
that,
the falseness of movies.
Right. And like the set design and even the effects that aren't the aliens, I read that they talked about making the alien stop motion just like Nightmare and Coraline looks, and that was too much of a problem. Also, Henry Selick, who, does a lot of Burton's work that Burton gets credit for, he was unavailable, and so they went with CGI. I think the aliens stand out more than a lot of other effects, like the spaceships in the intro, where even if you're not a 1950s sci-fi connoisseur, there's something that like you understand. This is a bunch of different timelines being mashed together.
Yeah.
And I think the most obvious thing is that it does take place in the 90s. The fashion is all over the place, but the TVs are very specifically giant box 1950s, 1960s TVs. Every TV, even the one that's like in the casino that everybody's watching, they're just all old. And I think there's this thing of like, the stories might change, or the stories might look different, and the graphics might look different, but where we get our stories basically remains the same. And I think it's also because so much of the movie is the characters watching the story of what's happening in the other three locations from these old ass TVs, just like he did. He has to put himself in his movies, not just stylistically, but literally he is never forgetting little Timmy B as a little kid watching this stuff,
And what's kind of nice? He captured also like it. I'm not saying that this was his goal, but he captured Vegas at this moment right at the turn in Vegas. Like the Luxor is up because it's featured like prominently in this movie, but you also get the old dirtbag Vegas, like that. A lot of which has been torn down, and then we've got this like more Disney-fied like version of Vegas, which I'm not railing against here, but except that it's nice to see the old version, and it kind of situates it in this like.
And Vegas heads know that Artland is trying to go from the shady side to the big time theme side.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Do you guys think it was weird that Jack Nicholson played both a president and a casino builder?
Were those both Jack Nicholson?
Yeah. Have we ever what kind of character can you guys imagine that would be both president and a builder of casinos?
Nothing. I don't think it could ever work.
But this guy in the movie, this guy's casino fails, Ryan. It's not something you'll see a lot in real life because having casino is literally a license to print money.
Now, how do we see Burton as a director and like there's the hack tags that are accurate of like he makes the same thing, same color palette. He's just playing the hits, but with no creativity. But as a director, not just stylistically, how do we feel here? He's like his hand, not just like the visuals and little Timmy B there, but like as somebody who's shaping the story visually and pacing wise.
Well, pacing wise, he absolutely falls down on the job, especially like a movie called Mars Attacks. The audience enters with knowing what is going to happen and then not seeing it for so long, including it seems like part of the joke is how long it takes them to actually get out to the desert where they're going to meet the aliens. But it's like the movie overstays its welcome. It's nearly 2 hours long. Like this movie should be, I think, 80 minutes. Like we should leave wanting a little bit more instead of leaving.
It should be 89 minutes, and then the 90th minute should be a little checklist to make sure that you did collect all the 89 other minutes.
I disagree. It should be 84 minutes.
Mike, you want to weigh in here?
I like where it's at. I'd say it's harkening to the Towering Inferno and all these other massive ensembles of before anything happens. And you could argue there's more modern sensibilities or quote unquote better sensibilities. But he checks in with every character you're ever going to meet before any of the action.
Yeah.
And I understand while that breaks a lot of rules, that's not going to be in your saves the cats.
This moves it at such a whip pace compared to the Towering Inferno and things like that. Like you forget how boring as fuck those 70s disaster films were at the start.
The other movie that I kept thinking about, besides Towering Inferno and besides, Earth versus the Flying Saucers or whatever, all those 50s movies, and then the obvious, a big one that I'm sure we're going to talk about later is Dr. Strangelove. But the movie I kept thinking about was Gremlins. Burton is trying to make a Joe Dante movie here by setting up your premise and then doing as many gags as possible.
Yeah.
And like we're going to show all the ways that people get killed. We're going to show all the ways that people that we destroy monuments, which I got to say, shout out to Burton. Love the whole bowling ball into the Stonehenge thing.
That's a good one.
But the fact that it started with the Twin Towers and the aliens did not down either of those, I really appreciated.
The aliens mourned, but people in New Jersey were cheering, which I thought was prescient.
Ryan, did you just mistake Easter Island for Stonehenge?
He did.
Oh, whatever. Like, sorry, big rock head thing.
Also, the people that currently live on Easter Island, they're like, okay, let's look at what kind of people live on Easter Island, and they show them as like people from maybe like 150 years ago. Like, I'm pretty sure the people that live on Easter Island just like live in little houses and go to the convenience store. Like, instead, they're like, here's these island people.
Every morning, get their basket full of grass and candy. Yeah.
I think they're just happy to be seen because it's an Easter egg.
Also, aren't those heads on top of statues? Those aren't just heads. There's little guys.
Look, there's a lot factually wrong with this, but I think that the Burton thing that we're missing, and I know, Mike, you specifically said, what do we have? And I'm saying, what do we not have?
Yeah.
But I feel like that in the 6 Burton movies up to this point, it was like, it's going to seem mainstream, but off. And there's going to be like shout outs to the dorks and the goths and the nerds and everybody in the audience that they will only pick up on. And he just knocks that all over, like bowling through Stonehenge.
So many Stonehenges. Yeah.
How about when they knock over the Washington Monument and the kids start running the other direction?
Yeah.
So they quickly go around and they push it with their ship onto the kids.
We got to talk about how they're fucking bitches. They're just tiny little mean ass.
They're little shitheads. They're colonists, man. And colonists like don't just want to do violence. They want to have fun with their violence.
It is the sadism. It's enjoying the pain. Proving the science wrong, or the scientist wrong, of like, oh, because they're smart, so therefore they'll be peaceful. I don't know. Humans are smart, you dumb motherfucker.
Yeah,
peaceful.
That's the deep irony, right? Is that like, and the idea that America was like in '96, like we couldn't be moved to war. That like that was a problem with America. That like we would wait too long. We were too patient. You couldn't convince us. Like, what version of America are we like? This is the country dreaming of itself as being too passive at the same time that we're like exporting destruction all over the world.
America at this point would literally say like, oh, we're about to start a war, but it's not prime time on the West Coast. Let's wait till 8 p.m. and start this war.
Get those bombs falling.
So we can get those ratings.
We have to take the quickest
What the
of
fuck,
breaks,
Mike?
but when we come back, we're gonna visit a monument that wasn't destroyed.
Stonehenge.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was defaced.
It was made better.
You bitches.
Mount Rushmore.
4 giant craniums of Martians with those flippity flappity creepy ass lung cheeks.
I feel
Love
like
it.
the amount that you keep saying that those are gross, you are into them. Yes?
I doth protest too much.
Yeah, I did. It's starting to read like a Republican here.
They do look like what you'd like tripe that you'd like eat in a bowl of soup or something.
That's your argument for why.
You want to take your shoes off and rub their heads.
Oh man,
Halfway there, Paul. Halfway there.
Ryan, as a like whatever the opposite of foot fetishist is there a little bit too much foot content in this movie for you? Sarah Jessica Parker is putting those dogs on the table, dude. Every scene is like, here's my foot and here's my leg.
That's fine. I also watched The Penguin this week.
This is for fighting. This is for Greg.
Thank you for finishing the classic school rhyme.
The Penguin made us all Ryans this week.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're recording.
What happened?
That's not what we're talking about. We're here to talk about 1996 fashion. That's right. An ode to fashion. Paul, let's start with you. What do you think demands to be on this mountain?
1996, there was no more famous fashion icon, and I think at this point in her life, everything was just looking great. The future was looking bright, and I'm just going to say, Lady Princess Diana. Lady Princess Diana. That's her name.
The Lady Princess Diana. Is there a specific piece of fashion that sticks out on Lady Princess Diana?
That demure look and lots of jackets with checks on them, I imagine. So, yeah, as you know, I'm finger on the pulse with fashion at all times. So
I would say the check jacket, though.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm putting the checked jacket. Some might call it gingham.
Gingham.
Yeah,
style.
it was all Gangnam Style back then. God damn it.
Oh, you know what? Points for everybody. You all got there on your own time. Greg, what about you?
Okay. 1996. You're little Greg. You're in high school.
It's titties, isn't it?
It's titties. Oh my gosh. Have you heard
They
of them?
were in fashion.
Good gravy. I have to give a shout out, as we do anytime we're doing a season around the 90s, chokers. Just a little bit of leather right around the throat.
Or cloth. I think most of them were. Leather was pretty hardcore for like middle school.
Well, there's like I was in middle school. I was in high school.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That's where
How
everybody was
old you
hurt.
are.
But yeah, like there's different types of leather. Maybe suede. I don't know. But the choker, not something you see many years, but was pretty big in 1996.
Greg, you've hit the jackpot. That's a big, 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 big bang.
Oh, see the craft, which we will not be talking
And
about
that's-
this year.
Oh my God. He demands to get more points because I was going to say, look at that poster. They are all wearing several chokers. It is the craft-delicious time.
Only chokers all the way down.
Yeah, dude, it's like
Oops, all chokers.
The cereal's gross, but man, is it sexy. Ryan, what do you got?
Well, knowing that the bonus points are off the table, I don't really give a fuck about this segment anymore. But
Who says how many bonus points there are?
Okay, I'm back, in, guys.
baby.
I'm gonna go with something that you wouldn't think that this was. I mean, this was clearly the hottest time in human history.
Yeah.
But based on this next thing, you would think that wasn't the case, and yet it was. It's overalls. Everyone, females, were wearing them, and I'm gonna give special bonus points to if they go down low enough where you can sort of see that one part of the hip.
Oh yeah,
So like they're wearing a onesie but overalls.
yeah.
Good lord.
Get a little bit
Side-
of hip.
Bit of side ass.
A bit of
Yeah.
side ass. Yeah.
It's a side ass.
Is she giving me the side ass?
Yeah, and so it's like she's completely covered overall, but then you get like a little peek, and you're like, wait a minute. Besides the pants that I see that she's wearing, she's not wearing any other pants.
There's a TikTok trend where people are wearing overalls but then no shirt. I'm saying too much.
Yeah.
But, it's just the side ass is all we need.
Yeah, just show some stuff. That
Agree to disagree.
that might be overalls had a big comeback this season of Love Island, and it spread through to the TikTok kids for Snake Guy Rob, who also likes to say go D on D. That's right. Dick on denim, which sounds horrific.
Wow, I didn't understand any of the words
Yeah,
you
that
were
was
saying
so-
until right at the end, and then it was like so bad. I wish I didn't know.
Yeah,
Dick
just
on denim.
welcome to Mike's fetish cave, everyone.
I'll tell you that guy's not circumcised.
Mike?
Yeah.
Guys, we don't talk about that here. All right. Paul, what do you got? Don't see circumcision.
Yeah. All right, cross it out. All right. I'm going to go with. Obviously, I'm not very good at this, but I'm going to go with Rachel's hair from Friends.
Oh,
Yes, you're very good at this, Paul. Disagree. The
Oh.
Rachel?
Paul, my friend. The Rachel is on the mountain. One of those
Oh,
disgusting
yeah.
Martians now
Oh.
has the Rachel.
Is
And
it
I
just
wanna-
a blank face with the haircut?
It's a Martian face with the haircut.
Oh,
No,
okay.
we're giving it to Jefferson.
He could
George
probably hit the
Jefferson.
cheekbones.
I do want to make it clear that it's getting the Rachel at like a salon, not literally putting Rachel's hair on your head. You should not like be looking
Yeah.
for that hair.
Yeah, this isn't like Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
It's layered. It's layers, is what it is. It's using a razor to make layers in the hair.
Oh, somebody went to barbering school.
I did.
Ryan, what do you got?
Is it me? Is it Greg?
I said, Greg, what do you got?
While Ryan was talking, my phone was listening to what he was saying and writing down everything he said, and now it's listening to me.
Greg
say-
is lame. Greg is stupid.
No, stop it. I am going to go with women at this time would wear a dress, but it's more like a slip. And so it's kind of like their dress is underwear, because like a slip really is kind of like underwear for a dress, and they would just wear the slip. And we got to go back. We got to go back to that. That's a great look.
If you need examples of this,
Slip
see
dress.
Spice World, 1996.
Oh, yeah.
Spice World 2, 2025, when my funding comes in.
By the way, like fashion, you could just look at the Spice Girls.
Yeah.
Like each one had a different part of what is the fashion of 96. Like,
yeah, each one was basically Mars Attacks. Like their name was the synopsis of their Spice.
especially Scary Spice, the one that scared everybody.
She's too sexy.
She's too
So they
scary.
changed her name from Sexy Spice to Scary. All right, now Ryan, unless you want to give up a turn again.
No, I'll go now since it's my turn. Everybody was wearing sandals just like they do now. Yeah, that was clearly gonna be a point. Everybody's wearing sandals, but in order to be taller, I think. And do you guys notice that every time we do this Rushmore of fashion, we always start everything with? So back then, girls were.
Oh yeah.
So dudes are just. They never did anything ever.
Dude, I was wearing like. You know what I was dressed like in 96? Billie Eilish. The way she dresses right now. Like, the jorts down to basically your shoes.
Adam
a hat
Sandler,
pulled really low and oversized kind of like jersey, dude. That is the way I was Billie Eilish every single day.
Who I was, Billy Idol. Just platinum blonde hair, leather up and down.
Rocking the cradle of love.
Every day. So you wear your sandals, but like you get like a 3 inches below those sandals, like these platform thongs.
Chunky
sandals.
Because girls had to be taller.
Right.
All right, let's speed round this shit. Paul.
Shiny suits for men.
Ooh. Those are back in the news.
A product you could buy. Shiny suits for men. Night of the Roxbury style suits.
Greg.
Backpack purse. Is it a backpack? Is it a purse? It's both. We're living in the future. It's 1996.
And this is like a tiny backpack.
This is like a very small backpack that is a purse, but you wear it on your back.
Yeah.
And it's the shape of a backpack.
Of course.
Don't want to talk about it.
Say why not?
Don't want to think about it. Mike, I'm going to do, because of Clueless in 95, that sets the fashion for 96.
Exactly, yeah.
And I'm going to do headbands. Just like maybe a handkerchief or maybe just like a big band. Get the hair back. Girls, mostly.
Girls.
Yeah.
96 fashion, girls.
Girls were very in fashion. You all get to shout out one more, and then I'm going to reveal what's on this mountain. Paul.
Toe sucking.
Ice
Toe
sucking?
Toe sucking.
All right, toe sucking.
I thought we were
was
just
all
saying
the rage.
we like now. Are we...
I heard ice sucking. Ryan heard toe sucking. So it's I put down when people dip their toes in ice and then somebody else sucks on it. That's 1996 fashion.
Greg, so you
Greg,
feel dead?
Tall socks. Kind of like a sock up to like the mid thigh.
Yeah, the 909 look.
This like impressed on me. This became like what beauty looked like 1996.
Did you see Clueless?
Yeah, I did see Clueless, and it made a big impression on me. I was like, could I have a stepsister? And then the culture kind of picked it up from there and took it to some weird places.
Oh, yeah, I mean, weird.
Ryan.
I'm going to go with something that was banned across campuses all across this wonderful nation of ours, spaghetti straps, because it showed too much shoulder on the women and the boys could not handle it.
Your 1996 Mount Rushmore fashion. Again, imagine the Martians from Mars Attacks wearing all of this.
Hell yeah.
It is chokers. It is the Rachel. It is headbands. And it is platform wedged sandals, my friends. None of you got the next thing, which is boots and a short dress. That would have made another double pointer.
Are you just singing cake songs right now?
Yeah. Let's take a break. Taste buds, this movie has a lot of it. But is that talent always well used? Let's start with Jack. Does playing multiple roles work in this movie? And does it ever really work?
I think both of his parts are really good and really fun. I think especially him doing like an accent and being the land developer guy. I think he's having a lot of fun with it, and I think that translates to the audience. I've just seen this move done a lot now, and I have to say, it always takes me out of the movie. Like, you're like, wait, why is he playing two different characters? It never quite works. I don't think it helps either character, and I don't think it helps like the sort of like the feel of the movie. I would much rather have him. I think he should have gone with the land developer guy. I like that. That's not like a role he's ever been in before. The president role, I also like, but I just think it's too noisy to have both of them.
I mean, I totally disagree. I think it does work because it, much like the intro,
because Peter Sellers did it, Ryan,
No, it's not
in
because of what
Doctor
Peter
Strangelove.
Sellers did, okay? The many people have done it.
Or How I Learned to Stop Worrying.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you saying the movie
Let
title.
him finish the name of the title.
But much like the intro with the 1950s spaceships, having the two Jacks, the two Jakes, if you will.
Points.
He would be so angry that you said that.
I do think sort of sets up like, oh, this is a larf. This is a farce. You know, It sort of helps with like, don't take any of this with.
And would you be surprised if I told you this is fewer roles than Nicholson wanted? They approached him early on and he said, I will do this if you let me play everybody. And they went,
like a one-man movie?
You could play two. And he went, fine.
That is not what I read, but I would like to do a little one-man rendition of that movie right now. It's Jack and there's Martians. Are you serious, Jack? I can't believe that there's Martians. No, I'm serious, Jack. What I read is that
Christian Slater, folks.
Michael Keaton was supposed to be the casino guy, and it was supposed to be a Batman reprise. And then Michael Keaton dropped out, so Jack was like, fuck it, I'll just do the other one.
Fuck it, I'll just do it live.
And that's why Danny was in it as well?
Yes.
Nice.
But that goes totally against what Mike said. So I'm going to say Mike is right.
Hey, it could have all happened.
But man, speaking of people technically in the movie, Dan DeVito, he's in there. I mean, like, you can't argue that he is in that one part where he wants to roll the bones and nobody's paying attention. And then he asks Tom Jones for his autograph. Like, what are we doing here? Just to technically have him be in the movie?
And again, it's harkening back to those 70s disaster films where they were just chock-a-block full of every star at the time. And so these are not stars, but these are Tim Burton stars.
The Burton verse.
The Burton verse. And he does it again with Danny Beetlejuice. He's just sort of there as a ghost janitor. Spoiler alert.
Is that the most wasted person, though, in the movie, Dan DeVito?
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed his first line in the first act, but his second line in the third act was probably better. His second and final line.
And versus, like, if you want to do comparisons of people who are, like, because most characters are barely there, but like, Danny DeVito is being Danny DeVito. He's going to deliver what you want. I think Glenn Close, who is Oscar winner, fucking crushes what you're supposed to do in this kind of zany B movie.
Oh, I totally disagree.
What? You're trash.
I feel like you have to let the zaniness of the movie breathe a little bit and not overdo it. And I feel like she, because she's a serious actress, didn't know how to just like, I don't know, like, I think you have to be serious and let the movie be goofy around you.
Well,
and
that's she was,
yeah, exactly, yeah. Or the Liam Neesons in the future, perhaps.
Someday, hopefully.
But she just was like, she's throwing faces like I've never seen an actor do to quite this degree.
I laughed when when the Martians come in and she does like a double take.
Yes.
As if she saw a well-balanced breakfast. I fucking lost my shit. Her like, oh no, her Doubtfire face.
There are so many lines in here that are burned into my brain just because of the trailer. And one of them is, well, they're not eating off the Van Buren China.
Yeah.
Most people, they've just got a caricature to work with, so they don't have a lot to do. And you see some actors trying to do a lot with the little that they have. Like Jack Black does an orgasm face as he's dying. You have to notice it, but it's amazing, you know. And clearly, he didn't have much else to do. So,
and it's funny because if you look at the timeline of who was famous and who wasn't, Jack Black was not and is trying to be. Like he is.
Yeah.
He is auditioning live on camera for us to become Jack Black one day.
Let me be in movies, please.
You know who I feel like really got the assignment? Pierce Brosnan. Like, I feel like he actually watched actors from the 60s who had to use a pipe, and he really brought a lot of like pipe acting into this movie, which is not an easy thing to do for a modern person.
And it's such a pain in the ass accessory.
Oh,
like
shit,
you always have to be dealing with it, you know? Like cigarettes, you can throw out eventually, or if it's just like a necklace, you don't even notice it. But like the pipe thing, you're just always handling it.
For him, he's like in the middle of his James Bond run or very early in it, and he probably realizes, oh, my movies are as dumb as this. Like
those James Bond movies are as dumb as this. Like they almost seem like a parody themselves. They're so like out there.
There's two things Pierce Brosnan does in this film which I just adore, and one of them is he's briefing them, and he said they have really large brains, so they could be telepathic. And someone says, "Is that real?" And he's like, "Oh shit, yeah." You can see him thinking, "I'm just being, a bullshitter here," and they're taking it seriously. And there's the end when he's been decapitated, and he's more upset because he gets asked what's going on. He says, "I don't know what's going on," and he's more upset about that than being decapitated.
He's reduced to his very essence, isn't he? Because he has lived so much just in his mind, and finally he is cursed to only be of the mind. I just wanted to say something Greg-like in the course of this movie.
That is somebody parodying Greg for sure.
Do you guys think about who you would rather be with? Is it Sarah Jessica Parker head dog body or dog head SJP body?
That's so upsetting.
Well, the dog head SJP body chokes, and as Paul is to toe sucking, Mike is to getting choked. So
why was the choker worth bonus points tonight?
I find
only one of them has toes.
I find that to be one of the most upsetting parts of the movie. I think that this movie is always doing that thing where it's like, if you want to accuse it of being stupid, it's like, that was satire and you fell for it. But her being like such a ditz and then being reduced to a human head on a dog's body and a dog head on her human body, I just felt like this is like so upsetting.
I mean, like, not just that, but like how many, I don't know, dictatorships and fascist regimes and colonizers will come in and find the new people, treat them like shit, and do experiments on them. And we see that happen with the Martians. And then, but there's also a romance after that. Like, crazy move, Tim Burton.
Let's zoom out to just the characters. What do these folks have in common that we needed to watch the end of the world through them? Are they showing us different aspects of the end of the world from their different positions and takes on life?
I think it's very one note. I think there's lots of one notes. Like Jack Nicholson as the president is always looking for how he can make a speech about something. And he wants a good speech. People are going to
love this.
Yeah, it's all about the speech. And, when he finally thinks he's getting through to the Martian at the end, it's because he did a good speech. And I love when they're getting the translation of what the Martian is saying, and he's taking notes as though he's going to use it in a speech, even though it's... Yeah. And shout out to what the Martians say. For dark is the swade that mows like a harvest. That is brilliant. I love it.
I don't know if anybody has read Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, but that is like, there's like a weird sort of like writing that shows up over and over again. And it sounds almost exactly like that, where it's like ominous, but it doesn't really quite make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that like they're
like a sophomore poet.
Yeah, because they're saying like, they are saying like, they're like, the reaping, the plaid will be the reaping. And it's like, I don't know what that means, but that's aggressive.
And I mean, for all we know, these came out of Tim Burton's high school journals, right? Like, it feels like those are lines from it. But I love that the Martians will say shit like Paul just said. And then the only other thing they say is, no, we're friendly. We're here to help, while killing every human in sight. I think that when I watched it, this was the biggest thing I watched for, is like, why these characters? Because we have like maybe 14, let's say. And I think that the biggest difference that you notice is that the people who think that they are in power are not, and the people who think that they have no power are watching, waiting, and adapting. And I think that the movie does a really good job of separating those two. I think that the people without power are one note in like a not satirical way. Like he's like almost careful with them.
So right. Yeah, like Natalie Portman, the donut kid.
And Lucas Haas, the donut kid. Yeah, he's like too careful so he doesn't make them interesting. Whereas he really just shits all over the heads of everybody in power so that we can get to them. And so like that's the weird thing, is that I wish there were equal interest across all parties.
I think what is interesting is power in its situation, because Nicholson has the most power as the president, but Lucas Haas's parents have the most power in the trailer, and they are equally satirizingly fucking stupid.
So it's just authority.
Yeah, it's whatever kind of authority you have, you're probably gonna kill other people because you're such a fucking dingus.
And the president eschews his authority, right? Like he is constantly looking to not actually have to be the decider, as we would get with George W.
Right, but like, yeah, to go along with what Mike is saying, the fact that you are an authority, therefore, means that what you say is correct, right? Like, because why would I be the authority without it? You know, it's like that whole thing of if slavery was bad, then the South wouldn't do it. Like the South is good, so therefore slavery is right. You know, I was reading that in a book that I just read.
Don't clip that, listeners, and send it everywhere.
Ryan, caution. This is a movie podcast, mate. So stop mentioning books. Same for you, Greg.
Mike, the illiterate one, you're doing fine.
What? We are going to, of course, take the quickest breaks. And when we come back, play a little game. It's once again time to stop talking about the movie and start talking about 1996 in general. It's the 5. When we choose 5 random icons of pop culture and say, who was that then? And by then, we mean 1996, of course.
By saying,
everybody
what's
gets
all this then?
Mike is so much better than me at when he forgets what he's supposed to be saying.
Yeah.
Because he just turns into like one of your relatives that's on the roof. And just screams shit.
Who's that then?
Are there 2 countries that are more likely to have relatives on the roof than Australia and America?
That's how my mum died. It's
Stuck on the roof too long? Let's start with Katharine Hepburn. Now, Paul, what does Katharine Hepburn as an icon mean to you?
Mostly a voice with tremors. So, yeah, I thought Reba McEntire.
Because she was in the movie Tremors.
And she uses her voice.
Right,
yeah,
so
that's it.
Reba. That's an option. Who could beat Reba? Do we go to the Greg? What do you got?
All right, I got one. Katharine Hepburn is nothing if not a lady who wears pants. I think that we know this. Known for dressing in a more masculine fashion, for not wearing makeup, for kind of just being a badass in general, putting people in their place. So who is got like a little bit of that light gender bendy stuff, right? Because it's not like she completely eschews feminine phenomenon. And so I'm going with Gina Gershon because she was quirky in Bound. Gina Gershon playing a very attractive lesbian and always like sort of like a more masculine presentation, except for the fact that it's still Gina Gershon, and I think that's what you get with Katharine Hepburn.
And Corky and Bound is different than Corky from Life Goes On, the worst show that played before.
Slightly different, yeah, slightly different.
Ryan, who do you got?
I'm looking at Katharine Hepburn. I'm like, oh, I mean, like, okay, you're not, one of these dazzling, super gorgeous actresses, but wait, hello, what is going on?
Strong
with you?
features.
What? Yeah. What am I so attracted? Like, I do want to.
Nice toes.
She probably has nice toes, and she probably has all of them.
Honestly, it's like getting with one of the fellas, which frankly we're all a little curious.
And it is. It's like hanging out with one of the guys, and you are still beautiful in your own way.
You're still hot.
And I want to be in a relationship with you, if that isn't too much to say. And I'm going with the star of both in 1996 Twister and Mad About You, Helen Hunt.
Wow. Not for me to say, but this is great.
Yeah, it's
my wife said Helen Hunt.
Did she really?
She did.
Yeah.
That means it's correct.
I'm going to go with Mrs. Verdum and say, yes, it is Helen Hunt.
So wait, I don't get a point, but Mrs. Verdum does.
Mrs. Verdum gets a point. All right. Now let's go to, I think, equally as iconic as Katharine Hepburn, Willy Wonka. And we're going to go and reverse it. Ryan, starting with you this time.
Willy Wonka is kind of a piece of shit, but hides it well. Very dark guy, but hides it well with all of his wildness. Look at me go. I'm going to walk out with a cane, but then I'm going to somersault and be okay. And who does that describe better then, star of 1996's Jack and the Birdcage. How did we never get a Robin Williams Willy Wonka movie?
You know he loves that candy.
Yeah, he'd be like, "Ooh,
Oh, candy.
look the wall.
There's a lot of powdered sugar back here.
Ooh, what's your name? I'm Jack. Mars is Jack."
Oh my goodness. They're
And
both
it's me,
here, folks.
Catherine Hepburn.
I hate this show. Greg?
Okay, Willy Wonka, soul of a child. He's a dreamer, but he does get things done. Ultimately, a good judge of character. This sounds a heck of a lot like another Roald Dahl character, Matilda Wormwood from the movie Matilda. She's a storyteller, she's a dreamer, and she manages to get all her kind of wacky plans accomplished.
Stars in a movie
Penchant
where
for
Danny
violence.
DeVito has more than 3 lines.
Yeah, that's true.
Paul.
Who brings childhood wonder to adults, and particularly men? So who makes men into man-children? And I think at 1996, there was no bigger encourager of man-childness than Kevin Smith. So
Paul. No, it's a great one.
Yeah, and he has the very iconic outfits. It's going to Kevin Smith, folks.
Remember when Shannon Doherty says, "And I have nothing better to do than come over here and fuck you"?
Yes.
Yeah, I felt so put in my place.
I'm so sorry. When Paul was saying who brings men to boys, I thought he said Kevin Spacey. That's why I reacted like that. I apologize.
I thought you just hated Kevin Smith that much.
No. Kevin Smith is a great one.
Let me be frank.
like Underwood. Danny Ocean, Greg.
Danny Ocean.
Who won that one?
Oh, Paul. Paul, of
Oh.
course. Kevin Smith.
Oh, of course, our guest.
With Kevin Spacey. That's great.
Danny Ocean, the charming man with a plan, can get himself out of any situation, even if it's going to be a little farcical, and even if there's going to be like a wrinkle, right? You have the plan, but then there has to be the wrinkle, and it's his charm that carries him through. This sounds a lot to me like Armand Goldman, which is Robin Williams' part in The Birdcage.
Willy Wonka from The Birdcage?
Not Willy Wonka, Ryan. They have to have this whole complicated plan. You know, we're going to set up this artifice, right? It's working for a while. Then they got to adjust on the fly. And thankfully, they've got Robin Williams there the entire time.
Pollywog?
Thank you. Well, I did spend some time. You guys call it Google Hill. We call it going down on Google Way down in Australia.
Heyo.
Yeah. So I thought, all right, Danny Ocean, he can put together a team. He can steal things. He always has a backup plan. And I basically twisted that into something that suited this segment and said Richard Branson, because he stole the Spice Girls from another company. And that was a good plan. And he put together a great team. And so Richard Branson, and he's a self-made millionaire, which makes him like 40% less a piece of shit than most millionaires.
I'm sure he's never done anything wrong or weird.
He stole the Spice Girls, Ryan.
Oh, yeah, except for that. He was the first time that I ever heard of somebody having a PJ.
PJ.
Yeah. Oh, do you guys? Okay. I forgot you guys are poor.
Peanut butter jelly?
It means private jet.
I got my first PJ like junior year.
Same a plow job? What?
You do live on a farm.
Right, guy?
I'm thinking of Danny Ocean. I'm thinking of a guy who brings the team together. You got your old man. You got the girl that you have now, but you're gonna lose probably later. You have the perfect gang group or band. It's Jonathan Schaech who plays Jimmy in That Thing You Do. You gotta know when to form the band, and you gotta know when to quit, Mr. White. You have to know when to quit.
This is the hardest, and I wish I could say because they're all so good. We're gonna give it to Armand
Goldman.
from The Birdcage.
Heck yeah. I thought when you came with That Thing You Do, I
Yeah.
was like, oh, that's playing the host.
But Danny Ocean is charming, and I
Yeah.
find Jonathan
What if-
Schaech not.
Mike has too much integrity.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Do you sleep at night? Do you feel good about yourself?
I do sleep at night. I'm a sleepy person.
If I had come with Tom Everett Scott's Guy Patterson shades, would that have worked?
Shades would have been Danny Ocean.
How about Captain Gooch and the Shrimp Shack Shooters?
Oh, that's who. It's obviously that's who it actually is. It's Captain
Greg is
Geach, but that's fine.
Greg's just throwing out references that he half-ass knows at this point.
Marilyn Monroe. Paul. Said it perfectly.
All right, so I'm noticing that you guys are very specific about movies, so I'm not sure if I will win this one. But Marilyn Monroe, you think of someone with a bit of tragedy in their life, also, taken too early, very talented, and that's probably where this falls down. But I mean, Greg said breasts earlier, so I guess there's that. But I'm thinking Anna Nicole Smith is the Marilyn Monroe of 1996.
That's pretty good.
It's
a pretty good answer.
Greg mentioned breast, that opened the floodgate, so now I'm totally allowed to say it. It's fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
So lascivious when you say breasts.
Yeah. Grab that booby prize.
Ryan.
Marilyn Monroe was a blonde bombshell who made part of her name, at least, in the Playboy magazine before being rocked and abused by the people around her, society, and her inner circle. The film Barbed Wire came out in 1996. It's Pamela Anderson.
Pamela.
Wow, this is just a murderer's row of tragedies.
Yep. Well, we're talking about blonde women, Greg.
Greg's like, I picked Cartman from South Park.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Greg, flawless.
Sorry.
And what's your choice?
I
Catherine
think
Hepburn.
we.
Hold on.
Slide.
If we took Philadelphia Story and replaced all her lines with Cartman, would the movie change at all?
I think an underemphasized part of our cultural memory of Marilyn Monroe is like the sort of, she walked that line between experience and innocence. Like there was something very kind of like innocent and naive about her. And at this time, 1996, I feel like that person is Liv Tyler, who is stunningly beautiful, but seems like kind of unaware of it. And certainly like a sex symbol, but almost, I don't know, in spite of her general demeanor, which seemed to be like, I'm just a normal person with a weird dad. So Liv Tyler from Stealing Beauty, 1996, and from Every Night, me going, Liv Tyler, I love you.
These are, was that Cartman again? These are all great, but I'm going to give it to Miss Barbed Wire herself. Pamela. Ending with Frankenstein, comma, the apostrophe S monster. Greg?
Shunned by his creator, imbued with both a beautiful soul and a monstrous exterior, and attempting to really just share his love with the world. 1996 Frankenstein is Quasimodo, played by
Dulce de Leche.
Dulce de Leche.
It's our first running joke, so let's keep it going.
Hang on. I had a hunch you'd say that. Sorry, Ryan.
I'm very much looking forward to our Hunchback of Notre Dame show,
Oh,
and not
sure.
just because this is the Disney movie that fucks, but because I think we're gonna have the redemption for it that Mars Attacks is not quite getting from this episode.
I did see who plays Esmeralda in that movie, and I heard that she's very Demi Moore, very cutesy.
She's the worst part of the movie. She sucks. Yeah, sorry.
She's a babe.
Besides the fact that the movie throws the G word around quite a bit, and it just
yeah.
sort of on edge. The Greg, they're all talking about Greg's the entire time.
They look at that
confusing.
hunchback and they're like, "You fucking Greg."
I remember when my
Stand up straight.
Nano randomly be like, oh, the Gregs are going to come and steal all our coins.
Yes, yeah. You know, they think we're allowed to steal, but we're not. We're just lazy.
Yeah.
Ryan?
Okay, so I know that it's Frankenstein's monster, but I'm going to sort of blend the two because I think that one became the other. I'm thinking of somebody who just became this giant, grunting, freak, like this monster who could barely get anything done because of how monstrous he became. I'm going with Dr. Moreau from his biopic, The Island of Dr. Moreau, played by Marlon Brando. And I know that he is doctoring other creatures there, but didn't he become the monster by the end?
I mean, Marlon Brando at that time was kind of a monstrous figure himself. He did an interview on Larry King with no shoes on.
No, his bare fucking penguin feet.
Yeah, they were penguinish.
You heard toe sucking might be in order.
Just cover him with butter first, I guess, right, Marlon?
Oh,
look, don't make it weird.
Paul, who is your Frankenstein's monster?
All right, when I think of Frankenstein, I think of someone who moves weird, has, is awkward, has weird hair, feels like they're stitched together from different people. And, I think in 1996, that was embodied by Michael Richards from Seinfeld.
I love that because I version. So your Frankenstein's monster of 1996 is Kramer. Your Marilyn Monroe is Pamela Anderson. Your Danny Ocean is Robin Birdcage. Your Willy Wonka was somebody else. And your
Matilda Wormwood?
Nope.
And Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith. And your Katharine Hepburn is Helen Hunt. That's the 5. We're going to take the music breaks when we come back. More Mars Attacks. This movie has a deeply cynical view of humanity, with the humans almost being responsible for their own conquering. Is that an at all troubling message coming from 1996 America?
Yeah, I think like there is just the fact that all of these people deserve to die and don't do anything to like prevent it. They give the Martians so many chances, and that after a while, I was like, it feels like this isn't like almost an apology for like colonialism. That like here are these dumb people that just deserve to get conquered, and it made me think of like how War of the Worlds was like supposed to be. Which is supposed to help show people how bad colonialism was, because like imagine if this happened to us. And instead it seemed to be like, imagine that if when we did this, the people kind of sucked and kind of deserved it.
I would say for the first half of the movie, I was going back and forth between is this a movie about how, like, is this just showing us America and a lot of countries, but let's just say America as past of doing this to other people, so now it's revenge time? Or is this showing us America's future, where if other people come in, we got to kill them right away, right? So, like, if there's a war, let's say, in the Middle East, and then all of a sudden these people come in, don't talk to them about peace. Don't wait for them to
dilly-dally.
Yeah, the international sign of the donut. Just fucking get rid of them, which seems to be Rod Steiger's the nuke guy.
Yeah.
That's his whole thing. By the end, I do think that it gets softer and more appropriate. I would say that the movie gets more appropriate as we learn that they are just dastardly evil and it is sci-fi. But that first half like made me scratch my head about like what Burton is saying right now.
When have we ever like been slow to be violent? Like that it's mind-boggling to imagine this country saying to itself, well, sometimes you don't want to be violent, but you have to be. It's like, yeah, dude, we like, maybe there is a span in the 90s. There's like a few years there where we were a slightly less bellicose, but maybe it's because this is just a few years before 9/11 when we're just about to go like absolutely berserk all over the place.
And one of the things that the movie does very quickly is it dissolves that whole Babelfish thing of, well, no, it's just miscommunication. And then once the communication happens, it's still like, no, fuck you. We are going to get you off the map. And I think that was interesting, too, because I could see a movie made by different people or just a different movie in general that was like, it was miscommunication the whole time, right? Like it was a Twilight Zone episode or something.
I find the film isn't really saying much at all. I mean, it's making fun of things. I kept trying to dig in some deeper meaning, and there's a lot of setup for, people getting ironic deaths based on what their passion is. Like, Martin Short's character getting killed by the Martian woman or man, or, they don't have genders, do they? Yeah.
No.
Anyway. Yeah. And the president getting killed when he makes a speech and shakes a hand, and then he gets stabbed by the hand, and which is fantastic. I love that bit. And the first lady getting killed by the Nancy Reagan chandelier. This everyone is killed by the thing that they're obsessed with. Right down to the people in the trailer park who worry about they can't take the TV and they're watching the TV when they die.
Were you guys surprised to see that Nancy Reagan chandelier go down so hard? Right?
How?
I mean,
Mike, what?
It
how
blew
long
her
has
right
this
away.
episode been? How did it take
What?
that long?
What?
Or what are we at? Like an hour 10, and finally the first Nancy Reagan blowjob joke is here.
I mean, she took that thing
normally-
right to the head. Right?
I can't believe the chandelier hit her all over her tits. That's not even a blowjob joke.
I mean,
No.
it would suck to go out that way, don't you think?
I think earlier South Park was referenced, and I think it's apt because this movie does feel like, oh, you're a professor, stupid. You're a news
Yeah.
guy, stupid. Talk show host, stupid. Military, stupid. Really is whatever you're into is fucking stupid unless you're into donuts and grandma, and then you're the best.
It's funny. It turns out that my wife was a much bigger fan, or at least seen this movie a lot more than me. Over the last 30 years, and her favorite characters were Lucas Haas and Natalie Portman. And then when we watched it together, she was shocked how little they were in it.
Yeah.
Like in her head, she had developed like this sort of fanfic of them hooking up throughout or getting out of the White House together. And it's just that they're the only two people who don't, like Paul said, have that ironic death or just have that Tim Burton middle finger in their face of fuck you, you piece of shit.
I was gonna say it reminds me of the townsfolk of Edward Scissorhands so much, where he's just like, all of this is trash, and he just zoomed out from suburbia to cover all of America. It is, but he's now beyond. It's not like, oh, it's just these track houses made of ticky tacky that are trash people. We are all trash people.
It's a great example because the more you zoom out, the more blurry everything gets, and so the satire just doesn't cut anywhere near as it does as Edward Scissorhands does.
Also, I do think you run into a problem if we start from like creating the movie. If you intend to kill 75% of your characters, 80% of your characters, the issue there is you want the audience not to, and you want the movie to be lighthearted in tone and funny. The problem there is you have to convince the audience that it's kind of okay that these people are dying. And I don't know if that's cynical as much as it is just like kind of the filmic language of like, we are always assured, no matter how bloody the death is, if we know how we're supposed to feel about it, because if it's someone that is just shows up for a second, they'll be racist, and then it's like, okay, that person deserved to die. And so we have a movie full of people that we have to be made to feel like it's okay that they die.
And the movie pulls its punches with Byron, who gets a heroic death, but then it undercuts even that by, he didn't die. He somehow punched his way out, collapsed, and then walked from Vegas to DC
in sandals. Not even platform sandals.
Oh, his feet would be destroyed. It would look like the penguin's feet.
I have to tell you guys, I'm so fucking stupid that when they cut back to him and he was alive, I literally cheered. I was like, yeah!
Well, it wasn't in the trailer, so you hadn't seen it 1,000 times.
But like, man, there's sometimes where I'm like, I'm an intelligent observer of entertainment, and I comment on it. And then there's times where they're like, Jim Brown is still alive, and I'm like, yeah, thank God.
Man, can I say this real quick, even though this is for the previous segment about acting?
We'll see.
Pam Grier really upped her acting game since the 70s, like blaxploitation movies. Jim Brown did not.
Yeah.
Pam Grier is acting in she's like going for it. Like she's in a normal ass movie. Jim Brown is reading cue cards this entire
Dude is
time.
Sleepy. Like this because you have to imagine the weird thing is what Jim Brown is experiencing acting in this movie is exactly what his character is experiencing, which is him looking around being like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like I used to be great. What's going on here?
If we could talk about lack of cynicism, what about, and I think this is pretty progressive for 1996, besides putting Pam Grier in your movie a year before Jackie Brown, having the kids who are ditching school and learning how to play video games being saviors. Video games are actually helping out the planet.
Thank goodness. Although if you notice when they're playing that video game, they're shooting the guy they're supposed to be saving.
That's true.
Because that's funny.
But you have to love the action move of go under my arms. And
yes.
That's like they're doing John Woo while playing arcade games. That's awesome.
My wife pointed out that the elder kid is Ray J,
Yes,
would
I've
go
seen
on.
his wiener.
So Mars Attacks is the reason we now keep up with the Kardashians.
Wow.
It's a
That's so
direct
because
line.
he releases the sex tape,
Yeah.
it gets released.
Should we pull up my sex tape board so we can follow this on the yarn?
That sound, of course, successfully made at this time is Speed Round.
Wait, there's one line that the president says.
No,
he's
fuck
like-
you.
Speed round.
He's
They
like,
got points.
when we do something, and it will happen, and then that will be the outcome. Like Jack says that to the camera, and that's what Mike just did there. Successfully, we are moving on.
It's crazy. For each word Ryan said, you guys got a point. What trading card set would you like to see turned into a movie?
When I was a kid, there was a and I had, I think, all of them. Each page was like a different Looney Tunes playing baseball scene.
Oh, hell yeah.
And we've seen them play basketball. All right,
Yeah.
that's been done. I want to see them play baseball.
I've only seen Bugs Bunny play against himself, and it's pretty interesting, but what would the rest of them do? In the early 90s, I got these cards, a set of cards based on it was called Batman the movie, and I always thought, damn, I'd fucking love to see this movie if they could ever somehow do that.
It's bold to call your trading cards the movie.
Yeah.
Mike, did you see the initial idea for this movie?
Is that the Repo Man guy's idea for the movie or no?
No. Tim Burton wanted to do a movie based on the card set called Dinosaurs Attack.
Yes.
And I looked at a lot of those cards, and it is dinosaurs fucking, like, just cards of people getting fucked
They're
up.
biting them in
Oh,
half,
yeah.
and yeah.
About to have sex with dead bodies. It's crazy.
Listeners,
but-
give me those cards.
But he was like, well, Jurassic Park came out, so recently, so I want to do Mars Attacks instead. And then ID4 comes out 3 months before this.
Hosed. Paul, any trading cards from your youth if you turned into a movie?
We used to have Wheat Bix cards. They had lots of animals, so you could have a movie with lots of animals, but have them voiced by Danny DeVito and stuff.
That is so Australian.
Madagascar. Check it out.
Yeah.
This
The
movie
country.
Not the movie.
relies a lot on CGI. What are the hits and misses of Mars Attacks?
Honestly, I watched this on a TV that 1996 could not imagine.
Yeah.
And a 4K version that 1996 could not imagine. And I bet in theaters this looks so much better. Like those Martians, like moving at all. And unfortunately, he didn't we were talking about the stop motion animation before. He didn't lean into the corniness of it.
Right.
And it's not often, but I really like all the special effects that don't include Martians, basically.
Yeah. Major miss for me is the dove. I don't know, you can film a dove. You don't have, you can figure out how to make it burst into flames some other way, but just showing the 24 polygon count dove, what are we doing here? I thought the aliens looked okay, but the dove I also wanted. Maybe that's why they shot it.
It's like they pulled the dove game up on Game Boy and then threw the Game Boy in the air.
I saw that and I was just like, ack.
Missed opportunity to roll the donut away from the donut store, but
yes,
really good. I really liked all the cops running out of the donut store as it gets destroyed.
Get him, Tim.
Does Mars Attacks feel more 50s or 90s regarding the political messaging of the film? Obviously, it can't be a perfect blend of both, obviously.
I was gonna say perfect blend of both.
You can't say that.
Yeah.
The interviews that I read of Tim Burton, it said that what he really hated was how the 50s movies were like, the government's here and we'll save you all. Get behind us. And how, as he got older, that just wasn't true. The government would always come, all right, FBI, CIA, president, we have to come together and come up with a plan. And that plan always worked. And every citizen was behind it. And then we went through the 60s and 70s and a lot of shit changed. And so he wanted to fire against that. I don't know if it's the perfect satire against that, but I definitely think it's more 90s, fuck the 50s propaganda more than anything else,
I was gonna say I think it's way more 50s or 60s because it just doesn't fit. It's with 96. I mean, I think maybe there was a little bit of that optimism that's sort of like that end of history that this is like pushing back against. But I don't think it has anything interesting to say about it.
And I didn't know this in 89, but that's why him and Batman were the perfect pair. It's because we don't want to be dated. You know, we want to have all times, all eras, all decades reflected in the same thing. And Mars Attacks does that.
I think it's timeless in that there's no time where this film is going to fit, ever.
But it also fits it every time.
We'll get to the performances of the movie and the awards and how good they could be. Who's the worst performer here?
For me, it's Glenn Close. I think she's trying to do what the movie is already doing, which is having that absurd tone.
Part of me wants to say Annette Bening. It's like, you're being so corny, and like, we have seen this character for 20, 30 years already. Like this hippie, just bring the Martians down.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the one thing that one of the things that ID4 does better than Mars Attacks is have that one lady.
I was gonna say, it's so
lines.
weird. It's not weird that they have two. It's weird that they have the same hippie character.
Yeah, and we remember her just getting her ass blasted off.
Mm-hmm.
Danny DeVito is not pulling his weight here. At some point, he says like, "You guys are going that way. Well, I'm going over here," and then just runs around to get killed for no reason other than like, we don't have time for anything else, Danny. You got to go over there.
I think Michael J. Fox is tremendously miscast, and I reckon that is the reason why this film tanked at the box office, because people didn't want to see Michael J. Fox die like a chump.
Do the Martians have two sexes like we do?
Yeah.
That is such a weird moment.
These Martians are freaky little bitches, and we all love it, don't we, folks? Is the movie going for that? And if so, why?
I do think that like we're supposed to maybe be drawn to like the kind of power of them at first, and I think that like the movie situates us to, at first at least, like them more than these humans who are just, I don't know, waiting around to die, basically.
Part of the Dante comparison for me is not just the, let's get ourselves to like a part of Act 2 where we can just have as many gags as possible. But it's also how the Martians and the Gremlins are just like, they're just into, I mean, it's like just like an evil little jackass,
Yeah.
Like, we just love just fucking pranking these people so hard.
Yeah, murderous pranks.
They have no genitalia, but they're obsessed with sex in the most juvenile way, which is like the way a young kid is obsessed with sex without even knowing what it really is.
And I think that's part
Boobies.
of I should have waited for that. I think that's part of Burton's like whole Looney Tunes thing is like, remember when Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck were all like, va 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 boom.
Yeah.
But there's nothing, it just seems weird in this movie that like they don't pay attention to anything except unless there's boobs that come into the screen.
The secret weapon of music could have been any song, but it was specifically Slim Whitman's Indian love song. Why come?
I don't want to get to, what was that documentary about the people who watched The Shining way too much? Remember Room
38, Room 238?
I do think that there's like that song being picked, I do think has something to do with like, just in case you didn't get the colonialism, this is specifically about America or white people marching on to Native Americans. And if I have to put it in the title of the song that's played, and I don't even know if that title's ever said.
Yeah, no,
movie.
I don't think so.
But it's called, Mike, do you remember the name of the song?
Is it not Indian love song?
Yeah, I mean, like, any other Slim Whitman song would have been fine, and yet this one being picked, I feel
I bet he yodels in most of his songs.
Once a yodeler, always a yodeler.
Yeah, is it music or is it yodeling that kills them? I feel like the movie doesn't drill down on that, because once you find something that works, I guess you just go with it.
And it's better than water.
I would have played the Ricola commercial. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Ricola!
And that's sort of boom, 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 bursts. Move over, Lady Gremlin. Fellas, can we have a moment to hoot and holler about that Lady Martian?
Hell yeah. It's very graceful.
I don't mean to ruin or spoil any new movies that are out. If you guys haven't seen Beetlejuice, but Tim Burton has a thing with casting his current girlfriends, and his current girlfriend is Monica Bellucci, and she is so unnecessary in that movie. His girlfriend here was Lisa Marie, and thank you for casting your girlfriends, Tim Burton. Just the best part of the movie.
The funniest part is what she's doing, the graceful slide swim through the air back and forth, but then Martin Short turns around and then she turns into like that weird grumly grouchy walk. It's so fucking funny.
What it reminded me of is every time my wife is looking at me, I'm charming and debonair, but anytime she turns her back, I'm picking my nose so hard.
All right, we are going to take the quick breaks, and when we come back, it's award season. Before we get to the awards, let's get to our favorite part of the show that we've never forgotten and never will, recommendations. Paul, if people liked Mars Attacks or didn't but want something similar, what should they check out?
There's a comic that came out a few years ago, and it's called Mars Attacks, and it was written by Kyle Starks and illustrated by Chris Schweitzer. And basically, it is the trading cards done as a story, but it has a secret ingredient that this film doesn't have, and that is heart. And I highly recommend that comic if you guys are looking for something really good to read with Martians and mayhem and destruction. And it starts in a nursing home, and the doctors start coming around and offering to euthanize everyone if they want. So, that's the tone of it. It's great.
Wow.
I love Kyle Starks because if I'm thinking of the right person, he signs his name in that like Walt Disney font. It looks like that with those swoopy letters, but he is not that kind of writer. And so, but he sort of writes, it looks like it might be that kind of story, and it's just not. And so I think it tricks kids into getting fucked up.
As they should be.
As an aside, this isn't relevant, but there's a Kyle Starks comic about serial killers, and he does a send-up of Saw where the guy's in a seat, and he can either have his hand chopped off or his dick. And he starts to explain it, and the guy just has his hand chopped off and walks off straight away.
I get
Me
it.
and my dick have somewhere to be.
Greg, what's your rec?
This made me pine for sci-fi, and I am reading a series of sci-fi books. The first one is called Hyperion. I'm on the third book, and the third book came out in 1996, called Endymion. And it is 1996 as fuck. A character recently said, I'm like in the course of reading this third one, said whatever. And there's a part where a guy gets lost on an alien planet, and he's like, there could be anything out here, including velociraptors. That's the only year in which people were still obsessed with velociraptors. But this is book 3. Book 1, Hyperion, is an excellent sci-fi novel. It's a whole universe, and you pick it up very quickly. It's based on a lot of classic literature as well. It's kind of based on it's like a version of the Canterbury Tales. It's a bunch of people who are literally called pilgrims on a mission, and they each tell their story, and then you hear their stories and you learn about the universe through it. If you're looking for sci-fi to just absolutely lose yourself in, that's also really well written. Dan Simmons' Hyperion is a great book to pick up.
Did you just knock out rec and 90s slang a couple of times there?
It's easier to find 90s slang in this series than it was in the freaking movie.
Yes.
I can't wait to hear what we have to say about that.
Me too. Ryan, what's your rec?
I searched through my notes, and I don't think that we've ever recommended this before, or I haven't. Despite doing a show last season on the first one, I'm going to recommend Gremlins 2: The New Batch.
Hell yeah.
Which is an absolutely incredible movie and when I say that, I mean like in Airplane. Like, you are so great at doing your thing. I don't give a shit about anything else. I feel like that Tim Burton just got ahead of his skis so many ways, or behind his skis. Like, he was just never.
But he couldn't find his
on
skis.
his ski. Yeah, just in this movie. But I think Joe Dante in The New Batch, he was like, I think what worked is like where we just had a tiny act 2 of gags. So what if the whole movie was act 2 and we just did jokes for 90 minutes straight? It is nearly a perfect movie.
Do you want quirky Martians that will fill Hot Topic with fashion? Check out Invader Zim, folks. I know it gets some love, but not nearly enough. I fucking love Invader Zim.
Do you know, Mike? I hesitate. That on certain websites, Invader Zim, like the fandom, has become like worse than Rick and Morty.
No.
Really?
Why?
So obsessed with this show that, like, if you say Invader Zim was good, not great, they will dox you. They will swat you.
Why is it that everything I like, I'm the only good person who likes that thing? What's that about? What is that? All right, let's get to the awards. It's 90s slang. Paul, what's the most 90s slang in this movie?
I'm going to stretch the definition of slang so that I can accommodate something, because there's very little 90s slang in this film, but I think there's talk of how much a telephone call costs, and that that reminded me painfully of the 90s.
Do you guys remember
Yes.
when the 90s were finally over and then we could get 10, 10, 220 and that's how we could make calls? Or calling cards, we could use those.
Calling cards, yeah.
I loved calling cards.
I dream of a time when we'll be able to talk to people across the planet instantly, but, we'll get there one day.
Instantly's in quotes there, I think, just a little.
Yeah, there's a slight delay.
Ryan, what is your 90s slang?
Jack Black looks back at his brother and says, "So long, retard." And that is just how the 90s worked. I don't know what else to tell you.
Greg?
That's true. Maybe a little preview of cringe there. I'm going to take the coward's way out and do what Paul did, which is stretch the definition of slang to include there is a general character in this that I don't know if people outside of like the 90s or early aughts would even recognize, but they very clearly looked at real life figure Colin Powell and went, let's recreate this guy for the screen. And they don't like lean on it. They don't do a ton with it, but there's a character that just is Colin Powell in this movie.
But I'm pretty sure. Sorry, Mike.
I was just saying, I was wondering, because I was a small baby boy, was Colin Powell known for not having a fucking opinion about anything ever? Because, like, were they lampooning this guy hard?
I do think it was like you run him out to go have, like, to talk about.
Yeah,
stuff.
like, look at what we did. We made this guy, we gave him a high place. And, yeah.
And then the movie's kind of prescient because famously, like, one of the things he did that was, like, the most, like, go take one for the team is he's like, we know there's yellow uranium in Iraq. There's no doubt about that. We are so sure.
And he's as hard up for cameras and press as like, the president is, like, weird tactic for Burton here.
All right. 90 slang is phone calls cost money. Isn't that weird? Next up is the most musical moment. Greg.
Okay. Danny Elfman always letting his presence be known. But I am going to go with the first contact moments. The music from the moment the generals or the generals like driving out. The music is always kind of like underscoring the exact mood of what's going on. First very martial, then very hopeful, and then it just finally drops out before it becomes the ultimate like destructive music.
He's one of those guys who doesn't know how to write music, right? He has to tell his interns like how to put the black dots on the page.
He goes like,
I think he just goes like,
that's why he's so ripped. He doesn't work out. He just never stops moving.
My favorite musical moment is not one of my favorite songs, but it had to be included in this movie. We hear "It's Not Unusual" once all the way through, and then when they're coming out of the cave and we know that they're defeated, and we're so banded together that now like humans and animals are friends, and we're like touching deers and birds fly under our arm, and Tom Jones has no choice but to kickstart once again. It's not unusual. Are you kidding me, Tom Jones? And I laughed.
That moment is it's very similar to a sincere on the nose moment of Independence Day, and so to have them come out so close, that actually is the best thing. Oh, what is yours?
It's just the music at the start is just telling you this is going to be weird and it's going to be fun. It's got all those quavering sounds as the Martian fleet is coming towards Earth, and it just really sells that this is not going to be real, and it's going to be weird. It's going to be a bit wacky, and I think the music just sells everything that the film gives you, whether you want it or not.
I love Danny Elfman when he works. And in this intro is when he works, obviously, and the fact that you can feel him running around the studio, just being like, anvil, hammer, bell, do it, let's go.
Theremin.
Yeah, can we get another theremin in here, please?
Greg and Paul, both of those are great choices, but I fucking love the ending of this movie, and when he starts singing, it's gonna make me laugh literally every time.
The guy knows one song.
Whoa, 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 Ryan. He also knows what's new, Pussycat.
And what's the girl's name? Layla or something?
Mandy.
Mandy.
Mando.
That's Barry
Manda.
Manilow.
Oh, I confused them a lot. Paul, your cringiest moment.
I guess it's how little Christina Applegate has to work with and her role in the film. It's just like, when you see her name in the title, you go, oh, okay, good for her. And then you watch the film and you go, oh, not good for her. That's kind of sad. But she is just, there to look, scantily dressed and kiss Jack Black goodbye, and that's it. So, yeah. I wonder what was left on the cutting room floor, but, what a waste. Nice waste. Yeah. And toes.
She does look beautiful.
Well, it's not like based on all of their careers, she's not one of the funniest people in this movie or anything.
No, yeah. There's a part where when she's saying goodbye to Jack Black, she steps behind the door of the Greyhound bus for a couple seconds, and that is almost like 10% of her screen time. She's behind the door.
Mm-hmm. And again, if we're doing the timeline math that we did with Jack Black, she's a name. She's one of the stars of this movie, and this is what she was given.
They reduced her to the part of Married with Children where Kelly would walk through the door and the crowd would go, woo! When what they had was the actress who made Anchorman, the movie that it is.
Right, guy?
Cringiest we already talked about it, but I have to say, do they have two genders just like us? Which is such a hacky joke, but also such a terrible reporter's question. When do you include just like us? Do they have do they have weapons? Just like us, just like we do.
Is it lifting and ripping off a hacky SNL sketch from 10 years earlier?
I love the first question, though, because especially in a modern context, the first question Michael J. Fox asks is, will the press have access?
Yeah.
That's all they fucking care about. Will we get to talk to them?
And if she or if they, the reporter, had asked the question like Mike wanted to, do they have genders? And if they have gills, does that mean woman? Then that would have made sense. Let's get up in those gills. But
get up in those gills, girls.
It's just the hackiest joke of the movie by far.
Yes. Greg?
There's a part that didn't sit right with me, and I finally was like, okay, this is causing me to cringe. And it is Pam Grier's a bus driver. She's driving down the street. Her kids have been let out of school because Mars attacked. But she doesn't know Mars attacked. And so she thinks that they're ditching. And so she goes and she gets a hold of them, and it's a funny little scene where she does the mom thing of no, I'm going to be regular, don't worry. And then as soon as they get within arm reach of her, she grabs and hits them. That's not the part that made me cringe. The part that made me cringe is she takes them back to the bus. And then when she puts them on the bus, everyone on the bus cheers. And I just felt like in a 96 context, this is oh, good, she's raising
Finally, someone is doing it.
Yeah, I just felt like it was very much okay, here is a woman who's actually raising her kids. And I don't think this movie does great with race. There's a couple times where I feel like jokes are a little uncomfortable, but none are as uncomfortable as this, because it's what are we cheering exactly? What is this saying about what our expectation normally is?
And those people in the bus probably didn't see those John Woo moves at the arcade game. Doing
that's what they were cheering for, I thought.
Or the way that when the kids stopped playing the game, it just kept playing on its own.
And the whole thing, not to give Greg more credence, but the whole thing of come here now and the kid won't come. That's former abuse. That's a red flag right there.
Well, that goes to Greg.
God damn it. I'm taking all the credit and blame for that.
Pound for pound performance. Paul.
No one is working as hard in this movie as Martin Short is when he sees a woman. His eyes are acting 120%. His mouth is acting about 110%. His look at the face, dart down for a bit, dart down a bit more. Yeah, I just thought, and he's so smarmy in a way that you forget Martin Short could ever be. But I think he is working every muscle in his face when he sees a woman in this film.
I mean, first thought, you would think miscast, but he is like the perfect slimy piece of shit.
Never miscast. Martin Short is golden.
I mean, honestly, yeah, like he could do it all.
Greg, what's yours?
I like that. Martin Short's such a worker. Certainly, it's pound for pound, right?
Yeah.
So if you're playing two different parts, is there really gonna is there any hope for you? I mean, you're hogging up so much of the screen time. I love Jack Nicholson in both of these parts. Playing the ineffectual president, can't we just wait to see if somebody else solves the problem? And then also the smarmy land developer who says things like, fill it up with every type of alcohol known to man. You don't get
much.
You don't get to see Nicholson do a character like this that much, and his fun really does come across. That's all I'm gonna go with him.
When he's dancing, riding the pony as if he's listening to 1996 Pony by Genuine with everything collapsing behind him.
Gentlemen, we can't lose. Even at the end of the world, people still want to roll them bones.
I do think too that with a bunch of people that are sort of on the set for 3 days tops in this 9-month movie, and everybody's working in a different movie, he's the one who has seen Doctor Strangelove the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ryan?
I mean,
Danny DeVito.
It's so it has to be Danny DeVito. He's so short, but no, it's so obviously. And it's not just watching the movie again, but also if you think about the most iconic parts, it's Lisa Marie. What she is able to do with literally no dialogue, and the way that she moves her body, the way that she does her impression of what Martians, I think mostly male Martians, as far as we know. They
don't have two sexes like we do. They just have a Speedo down there.
Think that men want women to act like, and it works only on somebody like Martin Short. I think anybody else would have been, but he's such a fucking
No,
hound.
I'm that stupid. I'm that stupid. Honestly, I'm the guy who Bugs Bunny comes back in a dress, and I'm like, ooh la la, immediately abandon my post and just follow him down the road.
Well, yeah, you're gonna get to fuck Bugs Bunny in a dress.
The only way I can get Greg to eat his vegetables is run away, dress in a dress and lipstick, and then say. But no, I think that her physical movements as what Martians think sexy is, and Greg thinks sexy is, and then when Martin Short's head is turned, like we talked about, and then move like that, how all people want to move, but they just don't. Just this is how we all want to do, but we're worried that somebody's filming us. I think she is perfect in this movie.
Never blinking,
and never blinking. And always chewing that gum, which is so hot. Why is that hot?
And that's obviously too much eyeshadow, but why is that hot? The whole top of her head is eyeshadow, and I'm like, dude, she's Chaperone before Chaperone.
Also, to
you
say
always had a thing for Mimi from Drew Carey.
To say that there's already somebody famous named Lisa Marie Presley, too many words. I'll be Lisa Marie. That's impressive.
That is impressive. That goes to Ryan and Lisa Marie. All right, finally, director's signature moment. Greg.
All right. I'm going to go with just the way he handles the opening credits. Sort of like the flying up into space with the spaceships, and then all the big music playing, and then the spaceships all joining into a armada, I guess. And then coming down, following all that action. I feel like he begins a lot of his movies with these big swoops through the set or whatever.
Can I go real quick?
Sure.
You've got 10 minutes to set up your movie, and this is when Burton and Elfman are maybe at their best.
Yeah.
You have to just be you're never going to think during this movie about what kind of movie you're watching because of how fucking perfect this intro is. It's all of the ships. It's the type of ship, right? He wasn't doing we've had Blade Runner since then.
Yeah.
Alien since then. We're specifically going for these perfectly silver polished ships,
and they look like shit in a new way, but they still look like shit because they would have been literally like a hubcap on a string before.
The way that every actor, A-list actor's name comes in as if it's the title, this first 10 minutes, and I don't know, Mike, if that's too much for a director's signature, but the way that these first 10 minutes work is the most perfect Burton that I would almost buy anything else that happens after that.
Good argument. Paul, what do you got?
I've seen all of Tim Burton's movies, and one thing always stands out to me in his films, which is, very particular to him, is characters never go to the toilet in his movies. But that's probably not what you're looking for. So I will say that it happens several times in this film, is you see something horrific and then it is immediately undercut by something wacky. Like, the dismembered hand of Michael J. Fox being removed by the dog, or the finger in the fish tank being eaten by the fish. And I think
That's
Burton,
adorable.
Yeah, he plays with horror, but he doesn't want to commit to horror. He wants to undercut it all the time. And I think that's something he does in lots of his films, apart from people not going to the toilet.
Toilet aside, I'm going to give that one to Paul. Gentlemen, are you ready to hear who has won your Mars Attacks show?
Is it Paul, Mike?
Look, I don't want to make a big thing.
Felt like
I'm just
Paul
gonna
me, Ryan.
I'm just gonna cut right to the chase. Greg got 39, Ryan got 45, and Paul got 46 points. Paul, you are my best friend.
Wow. That means he
Excellent.
nipped it right there at the end with the toilet thing.
I think it was the fish eating the finger thing, but if it's the toilet
Or the
thing,
sucking on
yeah.
toes thing, maybe.
Oh,
Man, it could be any
fish-
one of these, right?
Fish sucking on phalanges might as well be sucking on toes.
The fish were all about that finger. I wonder what they put on there, because the fish were like, oh, yeah. we
Oh,
like
and those
this.
were not trained fish.
No,
No.
you can't
Yeah.
train a fish.
No.
As Mike always says.
So Mike, can we go see Venom 3 together?
Yes, we will see. We'll do a back-to-back Venom 3, Joker 2, Kill Me Now movie hop.
Excellent.
I'm unironically excited about Venom 3. I'm sorry. Venom 2 was a good movie.
I haven't seen any of them.
That's so rare. Most people are like, Venom 1, sure. Venom 2, no.
They're a good time at the movies, and also they're the only movies that currently have Venom in them.
I just don't-
That is true. I think they're a good time on the airplane.
I
Myself.
don't support villains. Like, I'm a good guy and I love good
Mm.
guys.
So brave, so bold. Paul, before we get out of here, tell the lovely folks where they can hear more of you.
If anyone would really like to do that, and I don't know why, I have a podcast channel called Waiting for Doom, where sometimes I do a Doom Patrol podcast called Waiting for Doom. But mostly, if you're a fan of DC Comics and big events, crossover events in the comics, there's a series called DC OCD, where I get people on and we rate and review every single DC event, starting from 1985's Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I see you have a picture of in the background there, Mike.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and we are currently in the wasteland of 2022. So sorry about that, but good discussions about bad comics are happening right now.
And a rumor has it that, Ryan?
The good thing about podcasts is that, like, if you subscribe to this thing that Paul's talking about, you get the new ones, but also go back and listen to his Crisis episodes or his 0 Hour. Was 0 Hour a good one?
You have to listen to the episode, but we did do a bracket tournament of what was the best DC event. So, and that's a really, you should try doing some brackets sometime, you guys.
Yeah,
I think
We'll
it'll
think about
work.
it.
Yeah.
We'll think about
Brackets.
it. We're putting
did-
that into a bracket of ideas.
Paul, is it true that the listeners are saying you heard a wonderful, now defunct podcast about the OC called the OCD, and that's where you got the idea to name your DC podcast DC OCD?
I don't know what the OC is, sorry.
Fine.
Points are over. I can do whatever I want now.
Taste buds, thank you for joining me on Mars Attacks. Next week, we will be taking a break from films to talk about music of 1996. We're building a mixtape. Until then, keep watching